Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our conference, Keeping the Lights On. After the Prime Minister's debate last Thursday, I'm extremely concerned. Am I wearing the right tie? Are my hand movements the correct ones? And where's the camera, because I need to look straight into it? Well, what is the background to today? In 2008, we held a conference in Maidstone on climate change. There was such a level of interest so that we formed a climate change forum. And those included in that climate change forum were the National Trust, the Kent Wildlife Trust, the National Farmers Union, Natural England, the RSPB, Hadlow College, the Kent Universities, the Environment Agency, and several smaller industry groups. That forum still continues and is still doing extremely useful and helpful work looking at the effects of climate change on Kent. The forum has been a success, and as a result of the topics discussed, it became clear and important that we attempt to provide information on renewable energy. Thus followed the Renewable Energy Conference last year in Tunbridge Wells. As a result of interest in that conference, we formed an energy group which attracted considerable expertise from within the energy generation field. And I have to say, one of our ways that we work in Protect Kent is the moment somebody retires, we grab hold of them and say, come and join us on one of our groups. And we're reasonably successful at doing that. So this conference was born. Now, there's no doubt that energy will be a major focus for us, especially in the next few years. The present generation of generators are at the end of their useful life. Little has been done to replace these, and most of them are out of date. There's been a keen focus on renewable energy, but this is likely to be too little and too late. Brownouts are forecast between 2012 and 2020. And there's a possibility that even the Olympics might be affected. I heard a story the other day of a finance company in Canary Wharf, an American bank, who has moved its computers to Europe because they've been told they cannot guarantee the power they need during the Olympics. There is need for an urgent, in-depth strategic planning of if a crisis is to be averted. We need clear and achievable goals. We've got used to the old methods of power generation, coal, oil, and gas, all of which are responsible for considerable amounts of greenhouse gas. We have to consider new methods of generation instead of relying on those out-of-date methods which produce polluted waste. In his book, Solar, by Ian McEwan, one of his characters says the following: there is this guy in the forest, in the rain, and he's dying of thirst. He has an axe, and he starts cutting down trees to drink the sap, a mouthful in each tree. All round him is wasteland, no wildlife, and he knows that thanks to him, the forest is disappearing fast. So why doesn't he just open his mouth and drink the rain? Because he's brilliant at chopping down trees. He's always done things that way, and he thinks that's the way that we should continue in the future. Let's look at then some of the methods in which we generate energy at the moment. Kent and Medway has a population of 1.66 million. That was in 2008. The total domestic electricity use is 3.15 gigawatts. So each person in Kent uses typically 12 kilowatts per day. The highest is Sevenoaks with 15 kilowatts, and the lowest is Thanet with 11 kilowatts. Kent could be called the generator room for England. For gas, we've got Medway, the Damhead Creek and Northfleet. For oil, we've got Littlebrook and Grain. For coal, we have Kingsnorth. For wind, we have the Kentish Flats and Cheney Court, and nuclear, we have Dungeness B. Waste to energy, we have Allington. And the Sellindge converter is where the electricity comes from France that's converted for our use. Under construction, there is another Damhead Creek gas station, Kingsnorth being converted again to a new coal station, not as big as the one there at present, and Grain 2, another gas station. There's a carbon capture pipeline out into the North Sea, and for wind we've got the Thanet Array, the London Array, and onshore wind. There's a possibility there might be onshore wind in that area of Kent. And then, of course, we've got Dungeness C, which is still, if you like, in the background. Well, let's look at some of the types of energy production that we have at the moment. First of all, let's look at coal. Well, it's plentiful. It's controllable. We can switch coal generation stations on and off. It's not easy, but we can do so. It has a large output of 1 gigawatt, and it's got proven technology. But on the counter side, the mining impacts, especially when it comes to open cast mining. Carbon capture and storage. In spite of what you may hear, this is still unproven and expensive. Everybody will tell you the Germans have cracked it, but if you speak to the Germans, they will tell you they haven't. And then, of course, local air pollution. And don't let's forget the pollution aspects of the generation of power. Rochester is said to be the 4th most polluted area in the country. This is because the prevailing westerly wind drives all the pollution from the various industries in the Medway into Rochester, which is a bowl. And then the offshore wind blows Kingsnorth and the other stations back in there. Now to oil. Again, it's controllable. Again, there's a large output of 1 gigawatt. And again, there's proven technology. But on the other side, there's uncertain global reserves. Nobody's quite sure how much we've got left. There's an increasing price. Many of you will notice that petrol's gone up recently. Carbon capture, again, is unproven and costly. And of course, we've got competition with other areas like transport and those sort of areas like that. Moving on to gas, once again, that's controllable, large output, proven technology, and it's cleaner than coal and oil. But once again, uncertain global reserves. I don't know whether you've seen, but recently they're looking at having a very large ship which can anchor above a gas source and draw it up until that source is exhausted, and then the ship moves elsewhere. But that's very costly, and that goes on to the increasing cost. And once again, carbon capture. Then we go on to nuclear. That's controllable. Again, a large output. It's proven technology and much lower emissions from the generation. But also, there's uncertain global fuel reserves. Waste disposal is not resolved. And remember, there's a long period of decommission, about 100 years. And then, of course, what do you do with that radioactive waste, which remains radioactive for possibly thousands of years? There's a poor record on cost control. You'll notice that the latest nuclear power stations are well above budget, and this is one of the problems they have.